everyone, today I'm making a sourdough einkorn sandwich bread. I've got my sourdough starter here. Got about 4 or so cups of that. I just made up a bunch last night and it's all nice and bubbly. You can see those bubbles in there. It's ready to go, ready to make bread with. So I'm using this einkorn cookbook and using this classic sandwich loaf recipe in here. It's from Jovial Einkorn, and I'm going to be quadrupling that recipe to make 4 loaves of bread. So it starts out with milk. You want to go ahead and get that milk warmed up, and you want to melt up some butter, get that going on the stove. Got a nice little time lapse here for melting this butter. And then we're going to get started on making our bread. And so it's just basic ingredients of that sourdough starter. We'll put 4 cups of that in there. We'll mix in the rest of our ingredients. We've got sugar, milk, water, butter, salt, and then our flour, of course. I just really love einkorn bread. If you've never heard of it before, it is an heirloom variety of wheat that is basically considered like the original wheat, and it's a lot more tolerable for people that do have gluten issues. I didn't eat gluten for several years until I found this, and I just really love it. Everybody in our family loves it. It tastes really good, and I think everybody tolerates it better than they do conventional wheat. And this particular einkorn is grown over in Italy, and they're pretty specific about their practices over there. It's organic and it doesn't have a lot of glyphosate runoff from other crops and things like that. So I've added my flour here, then I added my butter. I'm seeing that it needs a little bit more flour. I went a little low on the flour, and then I'm going to add a little bit more. And then when I get done adding in my flour, what you want to do is you want to let it rest for 15 minutes to kind of the water to absorb into the flour. And then you're going to do a turn on it. I'm wetting my hands a little bit to help with the stickiness, but honestly, it didn't help that much. And I'm seeing that this is pretty wet, and so I'm just going to work in just a little bit more flour into this, just so it will stand up a little bit better and have a better finished product. One thing I will say about einkorn is that it is a little bit more expensive, or quite a bit more expensive than other types of wheat. But I feel for the quality I get that it's really worth it for my family, and it just makes everybody feel better. If I'm baking stuff for other people, I will use white flour a lot of times, or sometimes for other people besides myself in the family, I will use white flour. So after I get this flour worked in, I'm just going to cover it up. This is what it looks like now. And I'm going to cover this up and let it rise for about 3 to 4 hours. And you'll be able to see how it's down there in the bowl. And when I uncover it, you're going to be able to see how much it's risen. Got my beeswax wrap here covering it up, and you can just see how spongy and how much it's risen. I'm going to go ahead and be spraying my loaf pans because the einkorn does tend to stick to pans pretty good. So see, it's just all airy and fluffy. I'm going to scrape that out. I've got my bowl scraper here, and I've got my bench scraper, and those are just both tools I really love. You don't have to have either one of those. They just make the job a little bit more easier. So you can see here, you can even see those air bubbles as I'm dumping it out. And I just want to get all that dough out of there, and I'm just going to smash it down a little bit to get some of the air released out of it. And I will start dividing it up into fourths so that I can make it into my loaves. So once you've got it into fourths, you just kind of want to press it out flat. And then this one's sticking on me a little bit because I didn't have any flour on that section. And then what I want to do is I like to fold mine in thirds like you would if you were doing a letter to put in an envelope. And then take it and roll it up from one side. You kind of want to get it really tight, just get those air bubbles out there so you don't have any pockets. And you kind of want to pinch that underseam and kind of pinch the edges closed a little bit so you can see how I'm doing it a little bit more on this second one. Just folding it into thirds there and rolling it up. And then what we'll do is we'll let it rise for, it took a couple hours this time. Sometimes it doesn't take that long. My kitchen's been a little bit cooler. And also I forgot these granite countertops stay pretty cool. And so I had to move it over to my stove where it was a little bit warmer to help it rise a little bit quicker. So this is what it looks like before it's risen in your pans. You can kind of see that, and how you'll know that it's risen, I've got it covered with a wet towel here. So usually it's going to be about an inch or so above the pan there. So you can see that it's risen up quite a bit, and I'm going to get my oven going. It's actually already preheated to 425, so I've got it going really hot. I'm going to turn it down to 375 before I put those in there. And I'm just going to put them all in there together, and they will bake for about 35 minutes. And then I will take them out, and here they are all done, nice and brown on the top. Einkorn does tend to separate on the sides like that a lot of times, but it's still really good. It's not a problem, and we love it. So what I like to do is I like to cut it up. You want to make sure it cools completely. I'm going to slice this up really good, and I'm going to freeze a couple of these loaves because we're not going to eat them all right now. You can freeze them completely whole, and that's fine. If you slice them up like this, it's easier for if you just need to grab a couple pieces of bread and your whole loaf isn't thawed out. This helps a lot. So this made about 13 slices. A lot of times I can get maybe 14 or 16 slices out of a loaf. It just depends on how thick you cut it, but it does really good. You can see it's getting a little bit more crumbly there as I get towards the end. Part of that is because it just doesn't have any dough conditioners and stuff in it like a lot of other breads at the store does, and part of it's because it's einkorn. I do find that if I let it rise a little bit extra, sometimes it will be less crumbly, so I probably should have done that today, but it's still really good. We love it. And so I'm just going to put this in a Ziploc bag and put it in my freezer so we can pull it out for sandwiches and stuff later. Then we can have 1 or 2 loaves fresh, and we can have 2 or 3 loaves in the freezer for later. I love to do batch cooking like this because you can just get a whole lot done at once. Thanks so much for coming and watching my video today. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope you try making bread. It's just baking bread is the most amazing things, one of the most amazing things you can do. I love it. It's something I've done for so many years. Your house smells incredible when you make bread, and it's just super delicious. There's nothing like eating some warm bread fresh out of the oven.